Connor Vaughn stood in his corner office overlooking the Chicago skyline, his phone pressed to his ear as he listened to his longtime girlfriend, Natalie, describe her ideal wedding venue. He should have been excited. After 3 years together, everyone expected a proposal any moment. But as she talked about crystal chandeliers and fountain displays, all he felt was a dull ache of obligation settling in his chest. "Are you even listening?" Natalie's sharp tone cut through his thoughts. "Of course," he lied smoothly. "The peninsula sounds perfect." She sighed, clearly unconvinced. "We'll discuss this over dinner. Don't be late tonight." The call ended before he could respond. Connor set his phone down and loosened his tie, feeling the weight of expectation crushing him from all sides. At 32, he had built Vaughn Industries into one of the most successful commercial real estate development companies in the Midwest. His father's dying wish had been for Connor to marry well, settle down, and produce heirs to continue the family legacy. Natalie checked every box on paper. She came from the right family, moved in the right circles, understood the demands of his position. So why did the thought of proposing make him feel like he was drowning? Knock on the door interrupted his spiral. His assistant poked her head in. "Mr. Vaughn, the new interior designer is here for the Riverside project meeting." "Send them in," Connor said, straightening his shoulders and slipping back into CEO mode. He expected another sleek professional in expensive clothing, someone who would pitch the same generic luxury aesthetic every designer brought to his developments. Instead, a woman walked in carrying a worn leather portfolio, her dark blonde hair pulled into a practical ponytail, wearing simple black pants and a cream blouse that had clearly seen better days. "Mr. Vaughn, I'm Elena Bradford," she said, extending her hand with confidence that seemed at odds with her modest appearance. "Thank you for seeing me." Her handshake was firm, her green eyes direct. Connor found himself actually paying attention for the first time all day. "Your portfolio impressed the selection committee," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "Though I'll admit, your approach is different from what we typically see." Elena smiled as she opened her portfolio. "Different is exactly what the Riverside project needs. You're developing affordable housing for young professionals and families, but every design proposal I've seen treats it like another luxury building. These residents need spaces that feel like home, not showpieces." For the next hour, Connor forgot about everything else. Elena's passion poured through every word as she presented her vision. She talked about community spaces that would actually bring residents together, efficient storage solutions for smaller apartments, natural light maximization, and sourcing from local artisans to keep costs down while supporting the neighborhood. "Most developers don't care about these details," she said, meeting his eyes with an intensity that made his chest tighten. "They want marble and gold fixtures to justify high prices, but you're building something different here. At least, that's what your mission statement claims." "You think I don't mean it?" Connor asked, oddly stung by the implication. "I think most CEOs say pretty words to appease investors and move on," Elena replied bluntly. "But I'm hoping you're not most CEOs. This project could change lives if done right." Something in her directness cut through the carefully constructed walls Connor maintained in business dealings. "What makes you so passionate about this?" Elena hesitated, then seemed to decide honesty was the best approach. "I grew up in housing projects on the South Side. My mom worked 3 jobs to get us into a better apartment when I was 12. The difference it made, having a safe space with actual sunlight and room to breathe, it changed everything for us. Good design shouldn't be a luxury only the wealthy can afford." Connor found himself leaning forward. "You're hired," she blinked. Just like that. When can you start?" "I need to finish up 2 small projects first. 3 weeks." "2," Connor countered. "I'll double your proposed rate." Elena studied him carefully. "Why are you really building affordable housing, Mr. Vaughn? Companies like yours don't usually venture into this market." The question caught him off guard. Most people never asked about his motivations, assuming profit drove every decision. My grandfather immigrated from Ireland with nothing. He worked construction for years, lived in a cramped boarding house, saved every penny. He always said the hardest part wasn't the work, it was never having a real home. When he finally started his own construction company, he built affordable row houses first. Made barely any profit, but he said giving families homes was worth more than money. And then the company grew, Elena said softly, and then it grew. My father expanded into commercial real estate luxury developments. He built an empire. Connor looked out the window at the skyline his family helped shape. But somewhere along the way, we forgot what my grandfather started with. The Riverside Project is me trying to remember. Elena stood and extended her hand again. Then I'll see you in 2 weeks, Mr. Vaughn. Connor, he said, shaking her hand. If we're going to work together, call me Connor. Her smile transformed her face, lighting up those green eyes. Elena. After she left, Connor sat in his office longer than usual, his mind replaying their conversation instead of returning to the spreadsheets demanding his attention. Something had shifted in that hour, though he couldn't quite name what. That evening at dinner, Natalie monopolized the conversation with wedding planning details, venue comparisons, and guest list debates. Connor tried to focus, but his mind kept drifting back to passionate green eyes and worn leather portfolios. You're distracted, Natalie said, setting down her wine glass with a sharp click. You've been distant for weeks. I'm just busy with the Riverside Project, that ridiculous affordable housing thing. She waved her hand dismissively. I still don't understand why you're wasting time on that. The profit margins are terrible. It's not about profit. Everything in business is about profit, Connor. That's what your father always said. The casual invocation of his father's name, as if she had any right to interpret his legacy, sparked irritation. My father didn't build the company. My grandfather did. Well, your father made it successful. Natalie reached across the table, her perfectly manicured hand covering his. I'm just worried about you. This project seems to be consuming you, and for what? You need to focus on developments that actually matter. Connor withdrew his hand, a cold realization settling over him. They all matter, Natalie. The people living in affordable housing matter just as much as penthouse buyers. She rolled her eyes. Of course they do. I didn't mean it like that. I just meant for the company's growth. But she had meant it exactly like that. Connor had simply never paid close enough attention to notice before. The 2 weeks before Elena started felt interminable. Connor threw himself into work, but every meeting about the Riverside Project reminded him of her presentation, her passion, her directness. He found himself looking forward to her arrival with an anticipation that felt dangerous. When Elena finally walked into the Vaughn Industries offices as their new lead designer, she brought an energy the sterile corporate environment desperately needed. She immediately started coordinating with architects and contractors, her enthusiasm infectious. Connor found excuses to stop by project meetings, telling himself he was simply being thorough. You don't usually attend these status updates, his project manager mentioned after the 3rd week. The Riverside development is important, Connor said, not meeting his eyes. But the truth was becoming harder to ignore. He was there for Elena. She challenged him constantly. Pushing back when he suggested design changes she felt compromised the project's integrity. Their debates were electric, neither backing down easily, but always reaching solutions that made the work stronger. Connor couldn't remember the last time someone had argued with him so fearlessly. You're used to people just agreeing with you, Elena said one evening when they were alone in the conference room finalizing paint selections. It must be exhausting, never knowing if people mean what they say. How do you know they don't mean it? Connor asked, though he knew she was right. Because I've watched you in meetings. You suggest something and everyone immediately falls in line even when the idea isn't great, she grinned. Except me. Except you, he agreed, unable to stop himself from smiling back. Why is that? Because I'm not afraid of you, Connor Vaughn. You're not scary, you're just a person trying to build something good. The simplicity of her statement, the way she saw through the CEO persona to something more human, made his heart stutter. This was dangerous territory. He had Natalie. Elena worked for him. This couldn't happen. But as weeks turned into months, Connor found his relationship with Natalie deteriorating while his connection with Elena deepened. Natalie grew increasingly demanding, frustrated by his long hours and divided attention. Elena became the part of his day he looked forward to most. "We need to talk," Natalie announced one Saturday morning, letting herself into his penthouse with the key he had given her last year. "About us." Connor closed his laptop where he had been reviewing Elena's latest design proposals. "What about us? We've been together for 3 years. Everyone expects an engagement. My parents keep asking, your board members make comments, yet you haven't even mentioned proposing." "I've been busy." "You're always busy, but that's not really it, is it?" Natalie crossed her arms. "You're pulling away, have been for months." He couldn't deny it. "I'm sorry." "Sorry," her voice rose. "That's all you have to say, Connor. We're supposed to be planning a future together. The right marriage could secure your position, expand both our families' networks. This is what makes sense." "What makes sense," Connor repeated slowly. "Not what we want. Not what we feel. What makes sense?" "Of course that's what matters. Love is fine for normal people, but we have responsibilities. Our families, our positions, they require strategic thinking." Connor stood, a strange calm settling over him. For months he had been drowning, unable to name what was wrong. Now, listening to Natalie reduce their entire relationship to strategy and obligation, he finally understood. "When did we stop being normal people? What are you talking about? Do you even love me, Natalie? Or do you love what I represent?" Her silence was damning. Finally, she said, "Does it matter?" "Yes, it matters. You're being ridiculous. This is how our world works." "Then maybe I don't want to live in that world anymore." The words came out before he fully processed them, but once spoken, he knew they were true. Natalie's expression hardened. "There's someone else." "No," Connor said, and it was technically true. Nothing had happened with Elena, nothing could happen while he was still with Natalie. "But there's also not really us, not in any real way. We're just two people going through the motions because everyone expects it." "I cannot believe this. After 3 years, you're throwing away everything we built together." "What did we build, Natalie? Really? We attend the same events we attended before we met. We have dinner and discuss business strategy. We look good in photographs together. But do we make each other happy? Do we even make each other laugh?" She stared at him like he had spoken a foreign language. "Happiness is not the point." "Then what is? Success, stability, legacy?" "I want more than that." Connor realized he meant it completely. "I want someone who challenges me, who cares about things that matter, who sees me as Connor instead of Mr. Vaughn. I want what my grandparents had, working side by side, struggling together, building something meaningful, not just strategic positioning." Natalie's face twisted with anger. "You're a fool. And when whatever this crisis is passes, you'll realize what you gave up." She left without another word, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Connor sank onto the couch, his hands shaking. He had just ended a 3-year relationship, disappointed countless expectations, and complicated his life immeasurably. So why did he feel lighter than he had in months? He didn't tell Elena about the breakup immediately. It felt too raw, too complicated, but she noticed the change in him the following week. "Are you okay?" she asked after a meeting where he had been particularly distracted. "You seem off." They were walking through the riverside construction site, reviewing progress. Connor stopped by the future courtyard area where Elena had designed a community garden space. "Natalie and I broke up." Elena turned to face him, surprise and something else flickering across her features. "I'm sorry." "That must be difficult." "It's not, actually. That's what made me realize it was the right decision." Connor picked up a piece of concrete, turning it over in his hands. "We were together because it made sense on paper, but there was nothing real underneath." "How long were you together?" 3 years. Everyone expected us to get married, including her." Elena was quiet for a moment, then said gently, "But you didn't love her, No, he met her eyes. I didn't. The air between them felt charged, heavy with things unsaid. Elena broke eye contact first, looking back at the construction site. Love should be more than just convenient. What do you think it should be? She considered the question seriously. Partnership. Real partnership where you challenge each other to be better. Respect. Passion, not just physical but about life, about building something meaningful together. Someone who sees your flaws and cares about you anyway. That sounds like what my grandparents had. Your grandfather married his wife after knowing her 3 weeks, Elena said, surprising him. I looked up the company history after you hired me. She was a secretary at the construction company he worked for. Everyone said he was crazy, marrying below his station, rushing into it, but they were together 52 years. You did your research. I always do, she smiled. They sound like they had something special. They did. My grandmother died 2 years after my grandfather. The doctors said heart failure, but my father always said she died of a broken heart. She couldn't imagine life without him. That's beautiful, Elena said softly. Heartbreaking, but beautiful. Connor wanted to tell her that standing here with her, discussing his grandparents' love story at a construction site, felt more real than 3 years with Natalie. But it was too soon. She worked for him. He had just ended a long-term relationship. There were too many complications, so instead, he said, tell me about your family. Elena's expression softened. My mom raised me alone. My dad left when I was 2. She worked herself to exhaustion, giving me opportunities she never had, making sure I could go to college, pursue design. She's why I care so much about this project. Spaces matter, home matters, it shapes everything. She sounds remarkable. She is. Stubborn, strong, refuses to let me help her financially even though I'm finally in a position to. Elena laughed. She says she didn't raise me to take care of her, she raised me to take care of myself and make a difference. I'd like to meet her someday. The words hung between them, more loaded than Connor had intended. Elena's cheeks flushed slightly. Maybe when the project is finished. She'd love to see what we built. We. That simple word sent warmth through Connor's chest. Over the following months, as winter turned to spring, Connor and Elena grew closer. They spent long hours together, ostensibly working but increasingly talking about everything else. She told him about growing up poor but loved, about her mother's determination, about nights when dinner was just rice and beans but they laughed anyway. He told her about the pressure of living up to his father's expectations, the loneliness of his childhood in a mansion full of staff but empty of real warmth, the weight of a legacy he never asked for. You're more than your last name, Elena said one evening when they were reviewing final design materials in his office. It was past 9, the building empty except for them. You know that, right? Most people don't think so. Most people are wrong. She set down the fabric samples she had been examining. Connor, you're rebuilding this company based on values instead of just profit. You listen to your employees, actually consider their input. You care about doing good work that helps people. That's all you, not your father or grandfather. My father would have hated the Riverside project, Connor admitted. He would have said it was a waste of resources. But your grandfather would have loved it. How do you know? Elena smiled. Because you're like him. Everyone who knew him says so. You inherited his heart for people, his belief that business should serve communities, not just stockholders. Connor stood and moved closer, drawn by forces he had stopped trying to resist. When did you become such an expert on me? I pay attention. Her voice was soft, her eyes bright in the dim office lighting. Probably more than I should. The admission hung between them, electric and dangerous. Connor knew he should step back, maintain professionalism, but he was so tired of living up to expectations instead of following his heart. Elena, he said, her name a question and answer all at once. This is complicated, she whispered, not moving away. I know, I work for you, people will talk. They'll say I slept my way into this position. Do you care what they say? She met his eyes steadily. I care about my reputation. I care about this project succeeding. But I also care about you. Connor's heart hammered in his chest. I care about you too, I have for months. I've been trying to stay professional, but Elena, you're all I think about. We should wait, she said, even as her hand came up to rest against his chest. Until the project is done, until the work relationship is finished. That's 4 more months, I know. Connor covered her hand with his, feeling her pulse jump under his fingers. Can I take you to dinner? Not as your boss, just as Connor. Let me do this right. Elena smiled, and it was like sunrise. I'd like that. They waited until the Riverside project reached substantial completion before officially dating. 4 months of growing anticipation, of coffee meetings that felt like dates, of late-night phone calls that stretched past midnight, of carefully maintained professional boundaries that both protected them and drove them crazy. When Connor finally picked Elena up for their first official date, showing up at her modest apartment in jeans instead of a suit, she laughed with delight. I wasn't sure you owned casual clothes, she teased. There's a lot you don't know about me yet, Connor replied. I'm looking forward to changing that. He took her not to an expensive restaurant, but to a small Italian place his grandfather used to love, run by the same family for 3 generations. They sat in a cramped booth with red checkered tablecloths, eating the best pasta Elena had ever tasted, talking and laughing like they had been dating for years. This is perfect, Elena said, reaching across the table to take his hand. So much better than some stuffy fancy place. Natalie hated it here, Connor admitted, said it was beneath us. Then she was an idiot, Elena squeezed his fingers. This is real, the food, the family running it, the history, this matters more than gold-plated utensils and sommeliers. You get it, Connor said wonderingly. You always get it. Their relationship unfolded naturally after that, both of them aware this was something special. Connor took Elena to meet his mother, who was initially skeptical about her son dating someone without the right social pedigree but warmed quickly to Elena's genuine kindness and sharp intelligence. She makes you happy, his mother said privately. I haven't seen you this alive since you were a child. That matters more than I realized. Elena introduced Connor to her mother Maria, who lived in a small but immaculate apartment on the north side. Maria studied Connor with sharp eyes before pulling him into an unexpected hug. You look at my daughter like she hung the stars, Maria said. That's how a man should look at the woman he loves, but if you hurt her CEO or not, I will make your life very difficult. Mom, Elena protested, mortified, but Connor just grinned. I would expect nothing less. And I promise, I'm not going anywhere. The Riverside project opened to incredible community response and positive press coverage. Elena's designs were praised for being both beautiful and functional, creating affordable spaces that felt like true homes. Standing at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Connor looked around at the families moving into the building, children running through the courtyard Elena had designed, and felt his grandfather's legacy alive again. We did something good here, Elena said, appearing at his side. You did something amazing. This is your vision brought to life. She leaned into him slightly. Our vision. You made this possible? That night, Connor took Elena to the roof of his building downtown where he had arranged dinner under the stars. The Chicago skyline glittered around them, but all he could see was her. You remember the first time we met? He asked as they finished eating. You mean when I basically accused you of being a typical rich CEO who didn't care about people? Elena laughed. I can't believe you hired me after that. I hired you because you cared enough to call me out. Because you had passion and principles and weren't afraid to challenge me. That conversation changed everything, Elena. You changed everything. He pulled out a small velvet box, his hands steady despite his racing heart. I know we've only been officially dating for 6 months. People will say it's too fast, that we should wait. But I've spent my whole life doing what people expected, making sensible choices, following timelines that never felt right. And then I met you, and for the first time, I understood what my grandfather felt when he married my grandmother after 3 weeks. When you know, you know. Elena's eyes filled with tears as he opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful diamond ring. This was my grandmother's engagement ring. My grandfather saved for months to buy it, worked double shifts, went without meals. It's not the biggest or most expensive ring, but it represents real love, real sacrifice, real partnership. Elena Bradford, will you marry me? Will you build a life with me, challenge me, keep me honest, and let me love you for the rest of our lives? Yes, Elena whispered, then louder, yes, absolutely yes. Connor slid the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into a kiss that felt like coming home. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying at once, Elena said, "People are going to talk, you know. The CEO and the designer getting engaged so fast. Let them talk. I've spent too long caring what people think. You taught me that what matters is building something real, something meaningful, and this us is the most real thing I've ever felt." They married 3 months later in a small ceremony at the Riverside Development's courtyard, surrounded by family and the community they had helped create. Connor's mother cried happy tears, admitting she had never seen her son so genuinely joyful. Maria gave them her blessing with fierce pride, welcoming Connor into their family with warmth that made him feel more accepted than he ever had in high society circles. "Your grandfather would be so proud," Connor's mother told him at the reception. "Not just of what you've built, but of how you've lived. You found what he had with your grandmother." She was right. Connor looked across the courtyard to where Elena was laughing with a group of Riverside residents, her wedding dress simple but perfect, her face glowing with happiness. She caught his eye and smiled, that same smile that had captivated him from their first meeting. In choosing Elena, Connor hadn't just chosen a wife. He had chosen authenticity over expectation, passion over practicality, real connection over strategic positioning. He had chosen to honor his grandfather's legacy in the way that mattered most, by building something meaningful with someone who truly understood him. 5 years later, Connor and Elena stood in another courtyard, this one part of their third affordable housing development. Their daughter Grace, named after Connor's grandmother, toddled between them on unsteady legs while Elena's baby bump announced the arrival of their second child in a few months. Vaughn Industries had transformed under Connor's continued leadership, becoming known not just for luxury developments, but for pioneering mixed-use communities that served all income levels. Elena had become a partner in the company, heading their residential design division and mentoring young designers from underprivileged backgrounds. "Do you ever regret it?" Connor asked, watching Grace chase butterflies through the community garden. "The fast engagement, jumping into this life with me." Elena looked at him like he was crazy. "Regret marrying my best friend, building something meaningful together, having a family with the most stubborn, passionate, caring man I've ever known, not for a single second." "I was caught between 2 different versions of my life," Connor admitted. "Natalie represented the path I thought I was supposed to take. But you, Elena, you were the person I was supposed to find. I just didn't know it until you walked into my office with that worn portfolio and challenged everything I thought I knew. Best decision I ever made, taking that meeting." Elena kissed him softly. "Well, second best. The first was saying yes when you proposed." Grace ran back to them, demanding to be picked up. Connor lifted his daughter onto his shoulders while Elena laughed at the picture they made, her CEO husband in jeans and a construction site hard hat, covered in grass stains from playing with their child. This was nothing like the life Connor had planned. It was better. It was real. It was built on love and partnership and shared values instead of expectations and appearances. His grandfather would have understood completely. "Come on," Elena said, taking his free hand. "Let's go home." Home was a brownstone in a gentrifying neighborhood they were helping to develop responsibly, preserving its character while improving infrastructure. It was filled with Elena's design touches, Grace's toys scattered everywhere, photos of their growing family covering the walls. It was nothing like the sterile penthouse Connor used to live in, and it was absolutely perfect. That night, after Grace was asleep and they were curled together on their couch, Elena said quietly, "I love the life we built." "So do I," Connor replied, pulling her closer. Every unexpected, complicated, beautiful moment of it. He had been a CEO caught in a love triangle between the life everyone expected and the life he truly wanted. And in choosing Elena, in choosing love over strategy and authenticity over appearance, he had found everything he never knew he needed. She had been the one all along, from the moment she walked into his office and challenged him to be better. The moment she saw through the CEO to the man underneath. The moment she made him believe that building something real was worth more than any empire. Their love story wasn't the one anyone predicted, but it was the one Connor would choose again and again for the rest of his life. Because sometimes the best choices are the ones that don't make sense on paper, the ones that follow your heart instead of your head, the ones that lead you home to the person who makes you whole. And in the end, that made all the difference.